All right, perfect. So it's gonna be a bit different from normal. From normal webinars, I'm still recording. So for people who couldn't join, maybe, or if you want to watch it again, I will send it to you by email. The recording. Hopefully, I'm recording my screen. So hopefully that is working. And yeah, basically it. And normally the software I have recognizes the questions that you make and it just puts them in order, and it is so easy then to go through them. But unfortunately, I don't have that software today, so we're gonna just have a little bit more in a more candid way the question and answers after the presentation. Presentation normally is taking around an hour and a half. It is a pretty long and thorough and deep presentation about the non-lucrative visa and everything surrounding it. We're going to talk about the process, about taxes, about general considerations, and about timings, how to arrive to Spain, and once you arrive to Spain, how you can pursue the long-term residence, and so on and so on. It's a lot of information. So people are still joining now. I will give a few more minutes because it's a very weird day. One of those Murphy Law day where nothing really works. Unfortunately, I hope you understand the little inconvenience that we have today. But yeah, I'm gonna be sharing my screen for the presentation. Please, if you can, tell me that you see it. Let me see. No non-lucrative visa. Share. Admit. Good. Now it should be shared, the presentation. Can you please someone confirm that you are seeing it? Should be the first slide.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. People are still joining now. Okay. So the focus of this webinar is for USA and UK applicants, but it doesn't mean that if you're applying from any other consulate or anywhere else in the world, this webinar will not be helpful. It is like 95% helpful, probably. But of course, you probably heard that there's so many differences, even between the consulates in the same country. That actually putting all this information together for the US and the UK, it is a pretty big task because there's so many different things between, for example, Los Angeles and New York, and between the UK consulates, which tend to be more similar among themselves, Manchester, Edinburgh, and London. But in the US, each consulate it is its own kingdom, we could say. So yeah, we're gonna start now. 4:10 CET. I'm based in Malaga, and this is the Spanish non-lucrative visa webinar today, and this is the way I structure it. It is a timeline before the application, during the application, and after the approval. We're going to look at some definitions. We're going to talk about the consulates and outsourced services like BLS. We're going to talk about the difference between being a tourist in Spain and being a resident in Spain, some considerations about tax, and we're going to go through the list of criteria for eligibility for the non-lucrative visa and those requirements, and then we're going to go in depth in the most important ones. Then we're going to move on to the during the application. We're going to look at the timing, look at some visuals, how the whole process looks, what comes first, what is more difficult, what should be left to the end, and the application process itself. And then after the approval, how do you arrive to Spain, the ways to enter Spain, the different implications of entering the Schengen zone or from outside the Schengen zone, renewal process, and if you want to stay longer in Spain after 5 years, long-term residence, and even becoming Spanish, we're going to look at all that. And potentially, if you want to go back to work, transition to work permit, the most usual pathways to that. And a small disclaimer here, the content of this webinar is for information purposes only and is not legal advice. The requirements listed here are not official. please check the specific consulate requirements, and in the situation in which your consulate works with an outsourced service like BLS, also they have their official requirements. You should check those. Now, what is Spainguru? And the objective of Spainguru is facilitating the relocation process for English-speaking foreigners to Spain since 2014, so more than 10 years. And I'm Bruno Bianchi Sarcone. I run Spainguru.es and all the social networks that Spainguru has, mostly Facebook groups, but not only that, also YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok, and all that. Now, in Spainguru, you can find a lot of different types of help, let's call it. First, there's a lot of content. Probably half of the content generated by Spainguru is about non-lucrative visa with focus on Americans and UK nationals. And there's a lot of information, even if you plan to do it yourself, the whole process. But you will also probably need professional services for different parts of the process. Or if you want to go all the way along together with lawyers or immigration experts that can help you, you can also find those on Spainguru. You know, all my recommended partners have been personally vetted by me, and we have been working for several years with outstanding reviews. So I am very happy to recommend them. You can find immigration experts, tax advisors, something very important to have lined up your tax needs before even deciding moving to Spain, as it could be a very different thing that you may think when you move to Spain on a tax perspective. And of course, you will need non-lucrative visa compliant health insurances. You can find them on Spainguru.es. Medical certificates, sworn translations for sure you will need, apostille services, and peripheral services like bank accounts, money transfer services, and even property rentals and mortgages, even if you plan to buy property in Spain, and more than 100 peripheral services or additional services to the non-lucrative services. Now let's go with the presentation before the application. First things first. What is the Spanish non-lucrative visa? It's a visa for non-EU citizens that can financially support themselves and who don't need to work in Spain. Now, what is defined from a legal perspective? What defines the non-lucrative visa? First, there is the main law, the Ley Orgánica 4 of year 2000, and its regulation. Okay, so the main law is the general law, and the regulation just goes on the specifics on how the non-lucrative visa and all the different kinds of visas work. Now, you probably heard that recently the regulation of the law was modified. Well, it certainly was, but it is not going to take effect, those modifications, until May 20th, 2025. So before that date, it is the previous or current regulation that applies. After May 20th, it is the new regulation that applies that has certain impact in the non-lucrative visa that we will go in depth later on. Now, let's talk about the consulates in the US, UK, and also Canada. I have that information on Spainguru. It's very important that you understand that you can't apply for the non-lucrative visa anywhere in the world or in Spain. You have to apply from your consulate, and you have to be legally resident within the area that that consulate serves. So it's very important that you know which is your consulate, okay? There you can see that there is a map for the different countries, and they have very specific regions. So you have to first find what is your consulate. And the second thing is you have to understand if the consulate uses an outsourcing service for the processing of the non-lucrative visa. In the UK, they all do. They use BLS, and we're going to talk about that. In the USA, not everyone. For example, Miami uses BLS service for the non-lucrative visa. But, for example, there are consulates that use BLS service only for the Schengen visa, for tourist visa, but not for the non-lucrative visa, such is the case of New York City, for example, or Los Angeles, for example. So make sure you understand that. If you want to see dedicated pages for each of the consulates, you can go to spainguru.es/Spain non-lucrative visa, and you have not only all the information for each of the consulates and the links to BLS services when it applies, but also all the content that Spainguru generates, first-hand experiences from people applying and renewing and doing everything at that specific consulate. You will have all that concentrated into each of the pages of the consulate. So it's a very interesting resource that you have there. Now let's talk about BLS. BLS is the outsourced service that some of those consulates use. As we said, it is an Indian company. It's a huge company with operations in 64 countries. It is listed in the Indian Stock Exchange, and they not only work with Spain for the immigration processes. They work with many countries, many different embassies and consulates in the world. It is, I think, the second outsourced service out there in terms of size or volume that they handle. So it is a very important company. And as I said, it is very important that you understand if they deal with the consulate that it is assigned to you. When I say, oh, you're gonna go to Miami consulate, really you're gonna have to go to BLS office in Miami, because they have outsourced 100% of the process of the non-lucrative visa to BLS, if that makes sense. Now let's talk about the visa requirements for Spain. First of all, entering Spain as a tourist. British and US citizens can stay in Spain and other Schengen countries for up to 90 days within a 180-day period, rolling period, without the needing of a tourist visa. First of all, what is Schengen? It is a group of 28 countries in Europe without internal borders. Okay, so it's a whole area that you enter, and once you are inside, there shouldn't be passport control, although there could be. Okay, but it is normally 99% of cases there will not be border control inside Schengen area. Now, some nationalities require a Schengen visa to enter as tourists. Okay, for example, the Philippines. Now, what happens if you want to stay inside a country in Europe for more than 90 days? Then you will have to request a visa in order to obtain a residence. Okay, so it is a different thing, the visa and the residence. The visa is the paper that you get stick to your passport that you obtain at a consulate that grants you the permit to enter Spain within a certain period of time. That is a visa. Now, the residence is once you are in the country. It is the permit that grants you the permission to stay in the country, okay, for a certain period of time, right? So, for example, the non-lucrative visa grants you a window of 90 days from its start to enter Spain. And once you are in Spain, you enter Spain, you have 30 days to go to the police station and get your residency card. And then you're going to be under a non-lucrative residence. Okay? So, non-EU citizens who plan to be in Spain for more than 90 days, they need to secure a temporary or long-term visa. So there are two kinds of visas or residencies. The temporary residencies are the ones who are more than 90 days and less than 5 years. And the long-term residents are the ones more than 5 years. Okay, after 5 years in Spain. Okay, now citizens from EU countries, European Union countries, and associate countries like, for example, Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, etc., as well as their spouses, are exempt from obtaining this kind of visa, for example, the non-lucrative visa. This is very important because if you have the possibility, you or your spouse, to obtain an EU passport, an EU nationality, then you will be able to be in Spain under better conditions. You will have a work permit, for example, okay? And you don't have to show so many financial requirements. And the residence permit will be valid for 5 years without renewals in the middle, okay? So if you are in that lucky group, of course, this webinar and this visa is not for you. But if you're a non-EU national that doesn't have any EU passport or possibility to obtain one, then the non-lucrative visa could be for you. Now, let's talk about taxes. Tax residence in Spain. This is a very important concept. You become a tax resident in Spain and must pay tax on global income if any of the following conditions apply. The most important one, if you spend over 183 days in Spain within a year and a calendar year, okay, from January 1st to December 31st. If you're 183 days, no matter how those days are spread, you become a tax resident in Spain, okay? And also very important, it doesn't matter uh, what status you are when you're spending those days in Spain. What it matters if you are physically in Spain. It doesn't matter, for example, if you spend 100 days as a, let's say, 90 days as a tourist at the beginning of the year, and then you become and you pass 113 days under the non-lucrative visa during the same calendar year, you would become tax resident in Spain. Then the second condition is that your main activity, economic activity or primary income sources in Spain, regardless of time spent in the country. And if you have family living in Spain, you could also be deemed to be tax resident in Spain, even if you spend less than 183 days. I just added this slide just so you have a very summarized overview of the taxes in Spain. First of all, these are not all the taxes out there in Spain, but probably the most important. Income tax, okay? You pay income tax until June 30th. For example, I will pay my income tax for 2024. I will have the limit to pay it until June 30th, 2025, okay? And it is a progressive tax that ranges from 19% to 47%. It varies by region, very important, but more or less is that, okay? But it doesn't, and I will give you an example. If you're making, let's say, income tax 100K a year, it is around 37% income. On the right, you can see that table. You can see the brackets. The first bracket, for example, if you're making 60,000 euros, for example, the first 12,450 euros pay 19%. Okay? It doesn't mean that if you're making 60,000, you pay 37% all the way. No, the first 12,450 euros pay 19%. Then the following money that goes from 12,000 to 20,000 pays 24%, and so on and so on. So you're gonna get somehow an average of that. Yes, somewhat an average of that. So more or less, this is a ballpark figure. This is not tax advice. If you're making 100K, it's gonna be around 37%. Okay, I could be absolutely wrong. This is just so you understand how the tax bracket and how the progressive tax works in Spain. Now, there's also some other thing called the Form 720, the Foreign Asset Reporting, that you have to file between January 1st and March 31st. It is a mandatory form where you disclose your assets abroad that are over 50,000 euros. Okay, so basically everything and that you have abroad. So the Spanish government knows what you have, or groups of stuff. Okay, it doesn't work to have 50,000 euros in 5 bank accounts of 10,000 euros, because the total group of bank deposits is 50,000 euros. Okay, so you will have to declare that as part of your Form 720. Now, wealth tax. Okay, this is a common fear among people who come to live to Spain. First of all, it is an annual tax on net assets. Okay, so you declare the value of all your assets. Okay, and depending on the region, you will have a threshold where this tax is triggered. Okay, depending on the region, it will be starting from 500,000 euros to 700,000 euros. Okay, and there's a home exemption, so the place where you live can be exempt, and there are different rates depending on the region. Very important, in Madrid and Andalusia, the wealth tax is 0%. So there is a full rebate on this tax. You don't pay wealth tax. Maybe you need to file it, but you get a 100% rebate on that tax. And then there's something called the solidarity tax, starting in 2023, that starts on assets over 3 million euros. Okay, and very, very important, Spain has double taxation agreements with both the USA and UK in order to avoid double taxation. So normally when you become a resident in Spain, regardless of your situation, let's say, you will file first taxes in Spain, and then you will credit those taxes to the US, to the IRS, okay? And then they will deduct the taxes from the ones that you should pay in the US, okay? So this is, of course, a very, very, very fast summary. There's a lot of content on Spainguru about taxes, and of course, I recommend vetted tax advisors on Spainguru.es. Now, let's go with the non-lucrative visa documentation. And again, this is summarized. First of all, you will have to disclose an address in Spain, and it will depend on the consulate how they want it. Most of the consulates, they just want to know to which province in Spain you will move. That's it. No more questions asked. Some other consulates, they are more strict. For example, I'm hearing that Boston or Chicago, they ask for even like a 3-month rental minimum in advance. Okay, and this is it. It is pretty crazy. There are ways to solve that. If you want to know more, you can join Spainguru's Facebook group and ask people who are applying from there. I also have tools for solving that on Spainguru, where you can rent from abroad without visiting the property, or people tend to use Airbnb as well. Okay. Now you will also have to show that you're a legal resident in the country where you live, and that it is within the area that serves the consulate. As we said, you need to have an assigned consulate. You will need to prove sufficient financial means to support yourself and dependents if you bring them without working. Have comprehensive health insurance from a company authorized to operate in Spain. Or if you're a UK retiree, you could use the S1 form to enroll to the Spanish public healthcare system instead of showing a private health insurance. You have to show a clean criminal background check, medical certificate, which is completely different from the health insurance, free of diseases that could have serious public health repercussions of the protocol of 2005. And if you are coming with spouses, you have to show new marriage certificate, and if you bring in children, birth certificates. Okay, and you have to prove that you will not engage in any work or professional activities in Spain. We'll talk about all this in detail. Some consulates will require a letter of intent. Sometimes you will want to show a letter of intent because your finances are a bit complicated, or your situation is complicated, so you need to explain to the person taking care of your file, to give more context about all the paperwork that you're providing. And sometimes you will ask you for photos, and of course you will have to pay the fees for this procedure, etc. Now let's go deeper into each of these points. Let's talk about the financial requirements 2024. We're in 2025, but we still don't have any new requirements for 2025. And I don't think there will be, because there is no political agreement on that, but that's my personal opinion. I will keep you posted anyways if you follow Spainguru, especially on YouTube. Now, proof of sufficient funds. How much money you need to show, including savings and regular income. It could be a combination of both. First of all, the main applicant has to show 400% of the IPREM index of 2024. We will look at that. And each dependent, spouse, children, ascendants, you have to show 100% of the IPREM index of 2024. This translated into euros, 400% of the IPREM 2024 is 28,800 euros and 7,200 euros for each dependent. As you can see there, on the right side, you have a table. And a couple, for example, is the main applicant, 28.8K plus 7.2K is 36K that you need to show that you have in fundings, in savings, in passive income, or a combination of both. Could be, for example, pension withdrawals, rental income, dividends, even credit card credit. Okay, if it's, as long as it is readily available and there is no penalty to withdraw it, and you have a certificate from the bank, and there's many different things that can be submitted to prove that money is readily available in case you need, and that is accepted by the different consulates. You will have to show bank statements and documentation from your bank wherever you have the money. Okay, and it will depend on the consulate where you're applying from, how many months of bank statements you have to show. For example, in Manchester, some people got approved with 3 months, some other with 6 months. In Miami, they're asking for 12 months. In Los Angeles, 3 months. Okay, this is another thing about joining the non-lucrative visa Facebook group of Spainguru, because you have people who have been accepted and can answer those tiny details that can be extremely important. Some consulates may also ask for tax returns. This is the special case of New York City, for example. They're asking tax returns. And if you're bringing, for example, adult children who are still dependent on you, probably showing tax returns, it's important. And you will need, and between asterisks, double the amount for the renewal. Okay, not all regions ask to prove double the amount when you renew after 1 year of non-lucrative visa. And it is not really double, it's just that you need to prove 2 years, that you will be able to sustain yourself during 2 years. So in a way, you have to show double the amount. We're going to talk about that in detail. Now, we said the IPREM index. The IPREM index is the index where you calculate the amount of funding that you need to prove in order to get the non-lucrative visa. As you can see there, in 2024, 600 euros per month times 12 is 7,200 euros. That is 100% of the IPREM. But what happens if in 2025 it changes? As you can see, the progression is always going up. Okay, so maybe from 600 euros per month it goes to 650. In that case, the main applicant is instead of 28.8k will have to be 31.2k. Okay, and the dependents will go from 7.2 to 7.8. This is something that you need to have in mind, because once you are in Spain and you have to renew, for example, the renewal will be calculated with the new IPREM. Okay, so it's always a good idea not to be tight and not too close to the limit and show more. Okay, this is also $1 million question. Can I work remotely for non-Spanish companies? I receive a lot of hate for the answer, I will say, but I'm basically repeating like a parrot what lawyers say. In this case, Ainhoa Manero of Sterne Abogados, a very reputable immigration office in Madrid that I have been recommending for 10 years, not less. And I have an interview there. You can watch the whole interview there if you scan the QR code. Basically, long story short, there has been a Supreme Court that gave the reason to someone who was working remotely under the non-lucrative visa and said, no problem, you can do it. Okay? The thing is, in practice, the consulates, you cannot say that you are going to work, and you cannot use active income as part of your funding. You will get denied, ipso facto. I'm going to talk about that in another slide of a case of someone who was denied. But once you have the non-lucrative visa and you are in Spain, if you decide to work remotely, you can do it. It's a gray area. It is totally defensible. There's no problem to renew as long as you don't use that income to renew as proof of funding. Okay, you just you basically don't pay social security. You pay your private health insurance, and you pay your global taxes. You pay taxes on the income that you receive. The tax office never has said anything to the dozens, maybe hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people. I personally know people who are doing this, and you can go on YouTube and see YouTubers who are or were under non-lucrative visa working there and getting commissions. Okay, so this is the situation today. And of course, I don't recommend you to do it. Absolutely, I would say don't do it. If you're planning to work remotely, there is now another solution, which is the digital nomad visa, okay, or residence for teleworkers that didn't work, that didn't exist until January 2023. January 2024. So now probably that is the way to go. Talking about working under the non-lucrative visa, recently, and only in the Edinburgh consulate, and another way to show you how crazy the differences between the different consulates is. Edinburgh recently included in their page and in the requirements that you could actually be working on offshore platforms and still get your non-lucrative visa. Okay, and we have the specific case of a Spainguru community member who got this visa working and still is working in the UK and got the non-lucrative visa. And of course, this is only for Edinburgh consulate. Very specific case, but just so you see how crazy it can be. Now, let's talk about private health insurance requirements. Not all health insurance policies work for the non-lucrative visa. It has to be compliant. It has to mimic the public healthcare system. First of all, it has to have full coverage. Okay, no co-payments. So if you go to the doctor, It's not like you pay 50% you, 50% the health insurance. No, it has to be fully paid. Has to be fully paid in advance by the health insurance. There cannot be reimbursements. It's not, oh, it's paid 100%, but I have to advance the money now and then I will get the money from the health insurance. No, no reimbursements. Okay. People, for example, I've seen people recommending feather insurance out there because it has monthly payments. We're going to talk about that, but it has reimbursements. Some people were denied. Some people were accepted. So the people who were accepted are, trying to help everyone, but it is risky. So be careful with that. Uh, and I can show you screenshots, or I can send you the link to where it says where federal insurance has reimbursements. The moment in which an official person in a consulate sees that federal insurance has reimbursements and you are showing that insurance, you will get denied. So be careful with that. Has to have no waiting periods. You need to be covered from moment zero, the moment you set foot on Spanish territory, and full coverage, as we said, geographically and for all the different types of medicines, with nuances. We're going to talk about those nuances later on. It is very common, or always you need to do a yearly payment in advance, because the health insurance companies need the full payment in order to issue the certificate of coverage, which is the document in Spanish that you need to provide to the consulate as part of your filing for this visa. Okay. Now let's go with the frequently asked questions. Are my medicines covered? Under private health insurance, no, you will have to pay full retail price. Good news is, usually they're much cheaper than in the States and than in the UK. And also, after 1 year in Spain, you can go and pay your access into the public healthcare system, but still, if you go that way, you will have to also pay the full price of the medicines using this special scheme called Convenio Especial. So you really can't escape that. What should the health insurance start date be? So a lot of people will tell you the moment you have to have the appointment at the consulate, it has to be active. Some people say the same month that you plan to arrive to Spain. So depending on the consulate, it will be one different answer. My answer to this is, generally, if you plan to arrive to Spain on the 15th of February, for example, if you start the health insurance the 1st of February, should be good. Even if your appointment is in January, okay, it should be good. The best you can do is to work with experienced brokers or exclusive agents who know the immigration procedure and that can help you understand what the best timings are to get the health insurance, to get the certificate of coverage, and to decide what the start date should be. Okay, all that you can find on Spainguru.es. Are there health insurance for older than 75 years of age? Yes, for example, the KV and Adeslas, they have. Of course, they are very expensive. And I could relate to the next frequently asked question. What if I have pre-existing conditions, which you normally will have when you're 75 years of age? Normally, this is the way the things work. Depending how serious the pre-existing conditions are, if they are very serious, for example, if you have cancer in the last 5 years, you will not be able to get a private health insurance. Sorry to say. Unless you're a big exception. To give you an example, if you have high blood pressure, something smaller, then probably you will get the coverage, but you will have excluded anything related to that. And if you have a problem related to that once you're in Spain, you will have to pay out of your pocket for any treatment that you have. Okay, but you will still be able to get your certificate of coverage in order to apply for the non-lucrative visa. And potentially, after 1 year, as I said, you could use the Convenio Especial and enroll yourself into the public healthcare system that will cover you for the pre-existing conditions. Okay, so that would be the process. Can I pay into the Spanish public system? As I said, yes, after 1 year. It will cost you 60 euros if you're younger than 65, or 157 euros if you're older than 65 years old. As I said, it covers pre-existing conditions, but it will not cover the price. It will not have subsidized medicines. Okay, and also it takes some months to have effective access to it, A couple was saying a couple of months ago that they applied in March and they got access in October. So really, the first renewal, um, you will still have to renew your private health insurance for the first renewal, and then probably for the following renewal you will be able to use the access to convenio especial. I'm seeing that people are asking questions there. What if you have diabetes? I prefer that you ask to the agents, okay, and the brokers to your specific case, because I'm not a professional of that. The best is that you fill the medical questionnaire and that they tell you your eligibility to it. Okay. Um, in any case, I can tell you that on Spainguru.es, I work with an exclusive agent, Carlos Blanco, who is also an immigration lawyer. And if you have a difficult case, I think he's the best person out there you can talk to, because you can just tell, this is what I want, this is what I have, are there any solutions? And I'm telling you, he can tell you solutions. He has so much experience, so many years, and different ways to do the things. Okay, so that you can make your dream come true to come to Spain. Okay, let's put it that way. Can I use my current health insurance from the UK and the USA? If it's a compliant policy, yes. This is a short answer. The long answer is I don't recommend it at all. Okay, there's higher chance to get denied, because there is a higher chance that there is something that works differently from obtaining one specific fully compliant non-lucrative visa health insurance policy from a Spanish company. The certificate of coverage will not be in Spanish usually. You will have to sworn translate it. That costs a lot. Probably has clauses of reimbursements, some clause out there somewhere in the middle, okay? And the officials will look at it with a lens, and they will scrutinize it more. And it could be considered to be a tourist or a travel policy, okay, very easily. So I've seen a lot of denials. I also see people that were accepted. So, but my recommendation is you shouldn't. It's best not to use it. Can I apply with a UK S1 form if I am a UK retiree? Yes, you can. Do I need a Spanish bank account to hire the health insurance? No. And if they ask you to have a Spanish bank account, it is a big red flag, because it means that this person, this broker, this agent, or this company, or this person at the company is not used to work with people, which is your use case, which is someone who is abroad applying for a Spanish visa. Okay, so be careful with that. You don't have to have a Spanish bank account. Can I pay on a monthly basis? My answer is no. You have to pay one full year in advance, unless you go with risky health insurances that is really like a Russian roulette, let's call it. Can there be reimbursements? No. Will I get a refund if I am denied? Okay, this is also a very nuanced question. You have to read the specific conditions of your health insurance policy. There are refund clauses, there are cancellation clauses. Okay? When you choose your health insurance policy, make sure that you understand how to get the money refund in the event of getting denied, for example, or that you change your plans. Some companies will say, well, we'll refund you only if you get denied because of the health insurance and not because of another reason. Or we're gonna only give you 50%, okay? Or we're gonna only refund you the taxes or whatever, okay? Some other companies will refund you 100% regardless, okay? So it is very, very important that you discuss that with the person you're talking to. Where are the top companies? Next slide. And I stop a lot with the health insurance because it is an important expense that you need to do, and a very risky one if you don't go with people who are used to work with it. Now, these are the largest Spanish health insurance companies. First one, Adeslas, Asisa de KV, ASA, Salus, Caser, Sanitas, AXA, Mafre, and many more. These are not the only ones, but these are the biggest ones. And I added this slide today just so that you understand how big they are. Adeslas is the biggest one, and it is double the size, or let's say the sum of the second and the third, Sanitas and Asisa. Okay, and then you have the KV. So that you understand, Adeslas is the most popular health insurance in Spain. And today I was reading 25% of the population in Spain has private health insurance. Now let's talk about medical certificate. It has nothing to do with the health insurance. It's a whole different paper. Okay. It has 3 months validity. And there on the right, you can see a template. Okay, which is in English on the top and in Spanish in the bottom. Let's talk about the USA and the UK differences. For both countries, the best is that you use the template provided by your consulate that has the right wording. It is very important what the wording is. The best, if you can, that the template is in English and Spanish, because if it's in Spanish and both sides are signed and stamped, okay, you won't have to sworn translate it, and you will save 40 euros of translation for that. If it's only in English, you will have to sworn translate it. Now, in the USA and Canada, this certificate doesn't need to be apostilled, only just sworn translation if it's only in English. In these two countries, it needs to be printed with a doctor's letterhead, with the stamp, etc. And that's it. Okay, and it has to be signed by the doctor, not by the front desk of office person or anyone. It has to be the doctor, and it has to look official. In the UK, it's a bit different. This document has to be apostilled because the doctors can register themselves in the FCDO. Okay, so they have to be registered in the foreign office, and their signatures can be apostilled. Okay, so if you use a doctor in the UK, make sure that this doctor is registered in the FCDO, otherwise you won't be able to apostille the certificate. Or you can also use online services like ZoomDoc, which are widely accepted in any of the 3 consulates in the UK, and you can find a discount on Spainguru.es. All the doctors in ZoomDoc are FCDO registered, and it can be done fully online. Now, and related to the first frequently asked question, my doctor won't sign the medical certificate template. What can I do? Number 1, change doctor. Okay? Or some doctors, especially in the US, they want to take blood from you, do tests, expensive stuff, just to issue this certificate. Okay? Maybe it's interesting to change doctor, to go to an emergency service that they sign this. That would be enough. If it's printed on an official letterhead, etc., etc. Okay? But there's also the possibility to use a Spanish doctor. You can find a Spanish doctor on Spainguru.es. The Spanish doctor has several pros and some cons. The pros: the certificate doesn't need to be apostilled, doesn't have to be sworn translated, it's in Spanish. Okay, it's fully official. And it's done fully online. Okay. The con: some consulates, specifically Manchester, okay, has in the past denied this certificate because they said that you had to be physically present in Spain at the time of the issuance of this certificate. So they will look at the pages of your passport and see if you're in Spain, coinciding with the date of issuance of this certificate. So, but this happens in Manchester, but for example, it doesn't happen in London, it doesn't happen in Edinburgh. Today, Singapore was accepted. It was accepted in Washington, D.C. So if you are needing a Spanish doctor certificate, contact the doctor on Spainguru.es, and the doctor himself, he will answer you if the certificate has any problem or is accepted in the consulate where you're applying from. Second frequently asked question. My doctor is not FCDO registered. Is his certificate valid? No. Be careful with that. You can ask the doctor to register, and then it's fine. How do I know the Spanish doctor certificate is accepted at my consulate? Ask directly to the doctor who has the feedback from the people applying with his certificate, which are in the dozens at the moment. Now, let's talk about the criminal background check. And what do we mean by clean? There's nuances here. But very important, this is the document that normally takes the longest to obtain. I say normally because sometimes you got married in Cyprus or Trinidad and Tobago or Seychelles, and sometimes the marriage certificate takes longer than the criminal background check in your own countries. Okay, and especially the apostille and the apostille of those documents. But generally, the background check is the one that takes longest. It must be clean during the last 5 years. Squeaky clean, nothing, zero. Okay. Now, ACRO in the UK, you need to apostille it and sworn translate it. It has a 6-month validity. Always check with the consulates about this. The FBI background check for the US needs to get a federal apostille, very important, federal, and it has to be sworn translated. And it has normally a 6-month validity. Please check with your consulate. Am I still eligible with records on my background check? Nuanced answer for that. It depends what you have on your background check. So, the last 5 years, clean. Previous to that, it depends how serious the offense was. If it was something small, a misdemeanor, driving under the influence, smoking pot, for example, when you were a student in university, nothing happens, okay? But they will look at it. If it was something more serious, blood crimes, conviction, sentence, etc., it is a probable denial. So, what can you do? There are expungement or cleaning processes of those records. I would recommend you go through those before applying for the Spanish visa. Okay, always best to consult with a lawyer for all this. If you think that your case is a bit difficult or different, better to go with a lawyer for sure. Am I still eligible with a no live trace? ACRO. This is when you have some sort of record, but it was a long time ago and it doesn't show exactly what you did. In that case, you will have to get a specific report from ACRO for the consulate, so the consulate knows what type of record you have under the no live trace, which normally is something smaller, and that's why it's under a no live trace situation. Can I expedite the background check federal apostille? Since 2020, the proper expedite process disappears with the COVID. But now there is a sort of expedite process. On Spainguru.es, we have partnered with Monument Visa. You can get there, and they have a walk-in service for expedite service that you can get the apostille in just a few days instead of 3 to 4 weeks. Can I notarize the background check and use a state apostille instead? People did that in the past, sometimes successfully, but now it's pure denials. So don't do it. Only use federal apostille. Where can I have my fingerprints taken? You can go to a channeler in the US where they will scan your fingerprints, or you can also get specific papers from the FBI. You put them in an envelope and you put your wet print of your fingerprints. Sometimes your fingerprints are illegible. That happens to seniors where their fingerprints fade away. I have content on that. Just send me an email to hello@spainguru.es and maybe I can provide a solution for that. Now let's talk about some screenshots I made for the UK and from Canada for criminal background check. In October, the ACRO was taking about 20 days, between 15 to 20 days, or also 3 weeks to obtain. And in Canada, they had a lot of problems with the criminal background check apostille because Canada recently joined the Hague Convention for the apostille, and they had to do a crazy stuff just to obtain it under 5 months. But now apparently it's working well, and it's only taking 10 business days. So congratulations to our Canada friends who finally can get their apostilles in normal times. Now let's talk about proof of not working. The non-lucrative visa is also called the retirement visa because the usual person applying for this visa is a person who wants to retire in Spain, that they are receiving a pension. But doesn't have to be the case. You can apply for this visa in a sabbatical year when you are 25. I've seen people approved with 25, 30, 35. I have people on my YouTube channel that I have interviewed that are under working age and that decided to take a sabbatical period. Those people, unfortunately, receive more scrutiny from the authorities because they want to make sure at the time you apply that there's no risk that you work at all. Okay? So we're going to talk about all the nuance about this. If you're receiving a pension, that's the best you can show, showing proof of receipt of a pension. If you're still working and you plan to quit before you apply, in the UK, showing the P45 is the best. In the US, resignation letter, termination letter from employer, both translated and notarized. If you are freelancers, in the US, notarized affidavit promising not to work. In the UK, a letter from HMRC, an accountant stating having ceased trading and deregistered from self-employment. But some people want to work because they don't know if they're going to get the visa, right? Can I, what if, I don't want to quit my job before getting the visa granted. How can I do that? Okay, so should I quit before I get the visa? We're going to talk about the nuances there in the next slide. But first, is renting out a property considered a job? Size matters. If you have 1-2 properties and you rent them long term, no, it's passive income. If you have 30 properties and you have them on Airbnb and you are dealing with the operations, daily day operations of that, that could be considered a business and that could be considered active income. So in such case, some people recommend hiring a manager and just receiving the profits. Okay, so there is of course a gray area there that I can't really determine where it becomes active income. Is investing in stocks considered active income? Normally not. Can I volunteer while on an NLV? And people get very, very, very mad at me also again here, because a lot of people say, you can't work under a non-lucrative visa. The name says it all. Well, actually, the name says non-lucrative. You're not lucrating. You're not getting money from it. So you can actually work if you don't get paid. It's fine. Just if you look at the name. The fact is, I have never heard of anyone having problems renewing their visas because they started volunteering in Spain. Actually, I recommend it. It will be better for you, for the community. You will join a community. You will make friends. You will help others. You will engage with the culture. You should do it 100%. As long as you don't get paid, everything is fine. There's no bank movement saying that you're getting money from it. Okay, so this is how it works. Now, people came to me and say, what if they pay me the lunches? What if they pay me the trips? Well, I don't know. That would be maybe too much for me to answer. Don't accept that payment if you want to be on the safe side. Maybe that would be my answer. Now, so you understand the situation in different consulates here about still working at the time of the application. For the UK consulates, I will quote some members. One says, a P45 is one way, but so is a letter from your employer stating that you have resigned and will leave on a certain date. And then Pauline says, looks like it's a bit of a potluck if they accept a letter from HR department in place of a P45 if working up to the last minute. Okay, so really my recommendation is you go to the Facebook groups, non-lucrative Facebook group from Spainguru, and ask other people who have been accepted in your specific situation, in your specific consulate. Read the specific consular requirements because they change a lot. Especially in the US, they are more welcoming to this situation. It's more common that people work until the very last moment, okay? And they have added those requirements or those, let's say, documentation that you can provide if that is your situation. For example, in DC Consulate, they say in point number 10, if the applicant is of working age and or employed, he or she can add a letter of termination from the employer stating that the applicant will no longer work at the company, or a sabbatical year acceptance letter from the employer. So they're quite open to this situation. And then Ali says about Los Angeles, they will accept a notarized letter of intent that states your plan on quitting upon obtaining the visa before leaving to Spain. So this is the situation in the US. But before we were saying, like, can I work remotely? Can I work remotely in Spain under the non-lucrative visa? And I told you I was gonna show you a specific case how crazy the consulates can be about even suggesting that you are working. So this is the case in December 2023. A Venezuelan national applying for a non-lucrative visa at the Buenos Aires consulate, where I am from. He got denied the visa because he was showing activity in LinkedIn, some sort of activity. You know, LinkedIn, the professional social network. And he went to court. The court is in Madrid if you denounce a consulate, Spanish consulate. And they say that the consulate was right. He was showing activity in LinkedIn, so he couldn't apply for the non-lucrative visa. Or he was correct that he was denied the non-lucrative visa. So if you're planning to apply for the non-lucrative visa, be careful with those details. Now, let's talk about marriage, birth certificates, non-married couples. Married couples need a valid and updated certificate of marriage, okay, that has a 6-month validity normally. As I said before, be careful if you marry in specific jurisdictions. Seychelles, like I heard of Cyprus, horror stories about Cyprus, Trinidad and Tobago, because you need to get a new marriage certificate that is valid only for a window of 6 months. And you need to apostille it with the authorities of that island, okay, or whatever it is. But normally you got married in the USA, UK, and it will not take long, and you will apostille it. And then, of course, if it's not in Spanish, you will have to sworn translate it. If you're coming with children, same story with birth certificates. Now, what if I want to bring adult children and ascendants? You can do it. What is an adult children? Children of yours who are older than 18 with no age limit. And you have to prove that they are financially dependent on you and that they haven't married. They're part of the same family. And that is long story short. I have a full slide for that, but you can send me an email to hello@spainguru.es if you want to know more about this specific point. We talked a lot about sworn translations, but what really are the sworn translators? Sworn translators are accredited by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Only this ministry can appoint them, no one else. They pass a very difficult exam to become certified. Each sworn translator has a unique registration number with which they sign and stamp the documents, even if digitally. Their translations are accepted by all Spanish institutions, including consulates. The translations are done remotely and signed with a legally valid e-signature, and no physical mail is needed. This is very important. A lot of people are asking, like, do you know a sworn translator near Cardiff? Because I am in Cardiff. No, you don't need a sworn translator to be in Cardiff. It can be fully remotely. Actually, on Spainguru.es, I recommend sworn translators that are very experienced with non-lucrative visa documents, that have very fast turnover and are very, very economical or affordable. Around 40 euros per page, depending on the complexity. Now, can I use any translator from the American Association of Translators? No. And why I mention this? Because Miami Consulate, in its requirements, they have a link to the American Translator Association. This has nothing to do with the sworn translator appointed by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The only thing they have in common is that they translate, okay? But they don't have the registration. They have nothing to do with Spanish institutions, okay? So no, you shouldn't use ATA. Use sworn translators. Can a sworn translator work with several language pairs? No, they only work with one language pair. English-Spanish, for example, or Turkish-Spanish. Yes, so if you have to translate different languages, you have to deal with different sworn translators, or they will outsource other sworn translators. Or for example, if you married in Turkey, or your child was born in Turkey, and the birth certificate is in Turkish, sometimes the authorities of those countries, they will also issue them in English, which will be better because it will be cheaper for you to translate from English to Spanish. How much do sworn translations cost? As I said, normally for documents around the non-lucrative visa, around 40 euros per page. What comes first? Apostille, then sworn translation. So, every lawyer will tell you, first you obtain the document, then you apostille it, and then you sworn translate the original document and the apostille. This is if you want to be in the safe side. Some people say, oh, wait a second. In the UK, the apostilles come in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish. Why would I sworn translate if it comes in Spanish? Well, if you read the Spanish part of the apostille, it only has a very small part of the document that is apostilling. It doesn't have the proper content of it. And if you face that day the person with your file in the consulate dropped the coffee on the floor and had a bad day, they could say that it wasn't translated and deny you, okay? When I say deny you, really, it means no, every document has to be apostilled, every document. They will require you to provide the right documentation after, and they will give you a window of 10 days to provide it. But sometimes it takes more than 10 days to obtain it, so make sure to do it right the first time. And if you want to know more, I interviewed 2 very experienced lawyers, Ainhoa Manero and Sofia Mejail, from Sterna and from CABR, Relocation Solutions. And I have asked them the top 30 frequently asked questions about the non-lucrative visa. Those interviews are, I think, a must watch if you plan to apply. And yeah, so now we're in the middle of the presentation. If you think the information I'm providing is useful, I highly if you can help me leaving a review on Trustpilot. Normally in the original software that I was planning to use, there will be a link there to Trustpilot Spainguru, so you just click and you leave a review. But unfortunately, I don't have the link now. But it is, if you just search on Google Spainguru space Trustpilot, you will find Spainguru, and I would very much appreciate that you left a review there. And that's the only thing I ask in exchange for this information. That's it. And I have to say that I had 77 5-star reviews on Google, but on Friday, Google decided to delete my profile and thousands of other profiles for no reason. So it is it really took me a long time to get those reviews. So I don't want to cry publicly to you, but really it's almost to cry what happened with the reviews. I'm just so sad about it. So yeah, I only have like 3 reviews now. So if you just could help me. All right, let's continue. During the application. All right, so now you are prepared with all the general considerations for this process. Now let's go to the process itself. Application process. All family members must apply. Okay. Some consulates will require the in-person application and or pickup of the documents. Okay, sometimes you will have to drive to the consulate and with all the family, because all the family has to be present to receive the different passports with the visas. Some consulates only work by mail. For example, San Francisco, although a month ago or so they started to receive in-person submissions. Some consulates use a combination of mail or in-person, like Houston, or give you the option to choose. And very important, the non-lucrative visa grants you a 90-day window period to arrive to Spain from the visa start date. Some common mistakes to avoid. First of all, the disclaimer I said, not checking the specific consulate requirements. Always do. And BLS office requirements as well, in English and Spanish, and compare. And also join the Facebook group, because sometimes some requirements are not listed officially, but still they ask. Such is the case of New York City. Another one, wrong or expired documents. This happens, especially if you start with the easy documents. For example, a medical certificate that expires in 3 months, and then you continue with the ACRO, for example, or with the FBI background check, or with a birth certificate from South Africa that will take months to obtain. Wrong chronology, as I said before. Wrong health insurance, using our health insurance with reimbursements, etc. Okay, or you follow the advice of a friend who said, "Oh, I use Mafre; it's the best company." But then Mafre, the guy who gives you your friend, doesn't know about the non-lucrative visa very well and sells you a different non-compliant policy. Or say that you plan to work to the consulate, or if you are in working age, which is very blurry, what is working age, not showing enough proof that you will not work. I have an interview to a lady in New York City on on Spainguru's YouTube channel, that she got denied because they didn't show enough proof for her husband that they were not going to work. Now let's talk about the timing. Probably the most important factor, timing. How much in advance should I start preparing before moving to Spain? Start 6 months or 4 to 5 months in advance. Okay. Usually it takes a bit longer in the USA and Canada. In the UK it's faster, usually. But of course it depends on the specific situation where you have to get your documents from. Most consulates retain passports during processing, so you won't be able to travel without the passport. Something to have in mind. US applicants can get a second passport quite easily. I have content on that. In the UK, BLS may allow UK applicants to keep theirs, although it changes. You know how difficult it can be if you ask to keep your passport. In the UK, definitely it's not easy to obtain a second passport, because it is not under the conditions listed to obtain a second passport in the UK to be processing a visa for a foreign country. So you have to comply with other conditions. Now, some consulates will ask you to sometimes have prepaid envelopes or in-person visits to pick up the passport, what I said before. Now, how long does the process take? Documents preparation phase, 2 to 3 months. Attending the appointment on the third month. Not all the consulates have appointments. Sometimes they don't have. For example, San Francisco doesn't have appointment. Wait for approval, around 2 months average, sometimes 15 days, sometimes 3 months. Officially, maximum 3 months. And then a 10-day period if clarifications are asked. By clarifications, I mean extra documentation that, for example, wasn't valid. You can choose your visa start date in a 90-day window from application date. I will show you now how that looks in a timeline. And officially, you have 30 days to obtain the TIE card or the residency card, which is valid for a year once you arrive in Spain. Now, these are the insider tricks. The Spainguru community member says, you can ask for the visa to be valid for up to 3 months in advance. However, the difficulty I found was finding a health insurance company who will work that far out, as most only do 2. And I can safely say that many companies now only do 1 month in advance. So it is very, very in the limit. But I don't want to do too much advertisement. If you use Spainguru's recommended exclusive agent that I recommend, and if you need to stretch out the starting date, the person I recommend, Carlos Blanco, can work on that and can stretch it even several months in advance. Okay, if that is important for you. There are tricks for that. Now, this is a visual on how this looks. So imagine you have certain specific important dates, A, B, C, D. Submission date, A. Wow, someone joining now. They missed a little bit. Submission date. You can choose the visa start date within 90 days from your submission date, right? So you can see there's a period of 90 days, 3 months from submission date. Now imagine that you select and the consulate grants you the start date of the visa just before the third month end. That is point B, letter B, right? So that's the visa start date. From that date, you have 90 days to fly to Spain and enter Spain. Imagine that you enter Spain right at the end of that period on letter C, the green one. From that letter C, you have 30 days to get your residency card at the police station. And then the renewal, it is also a bracket, a period that starts 60 days before the expiration date of your residency card and goes up to 90 days after its expiration. So during this 150 days, you can renew your TIE card. But it's best if you do it 60 days prior to the expiration. Okay, so this is the clearest way I found to do this timeline. But I know it's very, very noisy, but hopefully you understand it. So this is how the application process looks like. First of all, on the top left, find your assigned Spanish consulate. Second, check the official requirements: consulate, BLS, Spanish, English. Third, collect the necessary documents. Check their validity period. Make sure to start with the difficult ones and the ones that have longest validity, like the background checks, ACRO. Then obtain the medical certificate, less validity, 3 months. You will have to apostille and sworn translate many of those documents. Then you will sort out the private health insurance or obtain the S1 form if you're a UK pensionist to access the public healthcare system. Then, and this is also not always like that, book the appointment. First of all, if there's no appointment, you don't book an appointment. Case of San Francisco. But sometimes the appointment, there's no appointments. It's a huge bottleneck. And in some consulates, for example, I'm hearing about Chicago now and Los Angeles, people start booking the appointment even before they start gathering the documents, just to make sure that they're valid at the time of submission. It is crazy. Then you will attend the consular or BLS appointment or BLS office appointment. For example, in Miami, you go to BLS office. And then you submit your papers, you wait for notification, maximum 12 weeks officially. And then you will collect your visa, or they will send it to you in a prepaid envelope, depending on the consulate. And from the start date of the visa, you will have 90 days to enter Spain. Once you enter Spain, this is not an official requirement, we'll talk about it. You will have to obtain the padrón or empadronamiento, which is the official registration of your address at the city hall, in the city where you live. They will give you a paper saying, John Doe lives in Malaga. And then you will request your residency card TA. I hope that wasn't too noisy. All right, now we have to go to the fun part of taxes. Because a lot of people plan to sell their homes or sell their funds or whatever. So that could be a taxable event. If you are a Spanish tax resident, you have to pay taxes on taxable events on your worldwide income. So let's talk about the timing to avoid capital gains tax on property sales. Timing of the sale and move. Selling your main property and becoming a tax resident in Spain within the same year, same calendar year, could result in CGT liabilities on the gains not reinvested in Spain. Good way, an easy way to understand it. If you sell in December and move to Spain in January, you fall into separate tax years and you would avoid the Spanish CGT on the property sale. Now, if you don't avoid it for whatever reason, there's a double taxation agreement. Whatever you pay to Spain, you will credit to USA, for example, or to the UK. Yes, but of course, the CGT in Spain might be much higher than you would have paid in the States. And some states in the States don't have CGT, which is crazy. Nice. Now, planning your move. Example, if planning to move in August and stay less than 183 days for that year, you won't become a Spanish tax resident immediately, avoiding CGT for that calendar year. Plan your non-lucrative visa application considering previous stays during the same tax year of your intended arrival in Spain. In other words, if you were in Spain at the beginning of the year as a tourist, it also counts. Always count the days that you were physically in Spain. If you were 1 minute in Spain, that day you were in Spain and counts towards tax residency. And there are CGT mitigation procedures like reinvesting the sales proceeds into a property in Spain. And for main residencies, individuals over 65 may have specific allowances to reduce CGT. And there you have 2 tax years, easy way to understand it. A tax year goes from January 1st to January 1st. This is a tax year. So any taxable event during that year pays taxes for that year. If that year you are not Spanish tax resident, you don't pay taxes in Spain as a resident. And this is another way to understand it. There's 2 ways to sell your house and avoid CGT in Spain, which is you put on sale your house and you sell it on the previous year, and then the following year you get the visa and you move to Spain. Or if everything is going to happen during the same tax year, make sure that you are not in Spain physically before the 2nd of July. Because after the 2nd of July, after the 3rd of July, there's only 182 days. And you cannot become a Spanish tax resident if you move after the 2nd of July. If you want to know more about taxes, I have so much content on Spainguru.es, videos and written content. Now let's talk about the after approval. Living in Spain on a non-lucrative visa. Right, so how do you arrive to Spain? There's 2 ways. From outside Schengen or from inside Schengen. Schengen is the group of 28 countries with internal that is internally borderless. But of course, the outside border, you have to show your passport. Or now they're gonna change the system. They will scan your face, and it's gonna be more like digital. You're gonna get a digital stamp, let's say. Now, if you come to Spain from outside of Schengen directly to Spain, For example, a flight from New York to Madrid, you will get a passport stamp in Madrid, and that will be fine. But what happens if you fly to Paris or Frankfurt and then you fly to Madrid? You will get a stamp in Paris or in Frankfurt, Germany, but not in Spain. You need a stamp in Spain. Or you are from the UK and you come driving. You will get a stamp in Calais, in France, but then you enter Spain by road from France and you don't get a stamp. Under those cases, you will have to get a declaración de entrada, which is a one-page document that you obtain at the police station or foreign office, normally police station, in the airports or close to the border. You have 72 hours to obtain it, and that is the best proof of entry to Spain from within Schengen area. The best one. Some people say, oh, I showed boarding passes, that was enough, the police officer was very nice. Well, it could be that that day you don't have a nice officer in front of you and boarding passes are not enough. So the declaración de entrada is the best protection for that within the 90 days visa validity window. So it is also recommended that you enter Spain within the 90 days visa validity window. A lot of people want to enter Spain as a tourist before. You can do it. You can do it, but it can bring problems when you have the residency card, the fingerprints at the police, because you didn't enter within the visa validity period. Some people reported having to go out of Schengen and back in just to obtain the stamp because the police station didn't let them get the residency card because they didn't have the proper stamp within the visa validity period. This is the worst case scenario, but it can happen to you. Some people said, I enter as a tourist 80 days before the visa start date, or 50 days. Then, when the visa was valid, I went to get the residency card, and instead of setting in the residency card the day of start of the residency card, the day that my visa started, they put when I enter as a tourist, 50 days before. So now you have to renew your non-lucrative visa much earlier. So be careful. Be careful with that. Now, some recommendations. Get a Spanish SIM card for your mobile phone because you're going to get SMS when you do procedures. It's very important to have a Spanish phone number. Open a non-resident bank account until you get a TIE card because it could take months to take the residency card. Months. So if you wait to get a residency card to get a resident bank account in Spain, you could just wait too long. And you need to pay your rent, you need to pay your gym, you need to pay whatever, and you need to pay the procedures that you do. So better to open a non-resident bank account that will probably come with fees. And once you're a resident, you go to the bank and say, I want to change the status of my account from non-resident to resident. Then obtain a padrón or certificado de empadronamiento, registering your address at the city hall in the place where you live. That has a 3 months validity. This is a huge recommendation, but it is not an official requirement. But we'll talk about that. And then you have 30 days to obtain the residency card, or TIE, Tarjeta de Identificación de Extranjero, the plastic card with your face on it, stating the dates in which you are resident. You have permit to be resident in Spain. Frequently asked question, is the padrón strictly necessary to obtain the TIE? We're going to talk about that. Second one, there are no appointments to obtain the TIE. What should I do? You will go through all this. First of all, TIE appointment. In practice, it is not really required to obtain it within 1 month. Almost nobody can. Appointments can take up to 6 months without issue. Okay? Depending on the city. There are no appointments. Of course, obtaining the appointment sooner is better, but there is no immediate rush. Nobody pretends that you obtain your TIE card within 30 days because no one does it. Now, for the empadronamiento or padrón, for the TIE, it is really not needed for the first residency card. And big police stations usually know this. In one city, for example, in Valencia, Málaga, and Madrid, you have one big police station and you have some smaller police stations. In all of them, you can get appointments, and in all of them, you can get your residency card. But only the big police station knows the rules. The other ones are just not so updated. And they may require you to have an empadronamiento. The official requirement is to show proof of address, okay? Like, for example, an Airbnb receipt. But the best proof of address you can show is the empadronamiento. I'm quoting here a lawyer who actually wrote this in different words, but wrote this. He was successfully obtaining TIE cards in Valencia, Gandía, Alcira, all in Valencia province, without empadronamiento. And in Malaga, I interviewed one person who got the non-lucrative visa at Panama consulate earlier on, who in Malaga just showed a rental contract. That was enough because the certificado de empadronamiento in Malaga, where I live, takes more than 2 months to obtain, to issue, and then it has only 3 months validity. But of course, maybe you get your appointment for the TA before you get your empadronamiento. So all these things, depending where you are, will come into play. Renewal process. How and when to renew your non-lucrative visa. First year, the moment you enter Spain within the visas period, the first year started. The first renewal that will grant you residency permit for a second year and a third year, the renewal can be done 60 days prior to expiration of the TA card and up to 90 days within all that period. Financial requirements for the renewal. Normally, in most areas, in most provinces, is 2 times the if it's savings, if it's lump sum. So if you showed money in the bank without income at all, just the money in the bank, for example, one person, 28,800 euros, you have to show double that, okay? 57,000 euros. Now, if you have passive income, then that income, you need to calculate it for 2 years, okay? For example, pension, savings, pension or a rental, etc., okay? And the funds need to be readily available. They need to be available immediately without penalty. Now, the second renewal happens for year 4 and 5, and again, before 60 days before to 90 days before the expiration of the TA card. And after year 5, you can obtain the long-term residence, which is much easier as long as you haven't been out of Spain more than 10 months in the last 5 years. Renewal process update. Changes effective on May 10th, 2025. As we said, we just changed the regulations. Renewal period remains fixed at 2 years each. There were talks about changing it to a 4-year period, but thank God they kept it to 2 years. And they added a 183-day minimum stay requirements in order to be able to renew the visa. Visa holders are required to spend at least 183 days per year in Spain to qualify for renewal, and this aligns with Spanish tax residency rules, meaning applicants would become tax residents. Sorry for that. Legal ambiguity. The 183-day rule is currently only included in a bylaw or in the reglamento or in the ruling of the law, and not in the main law. There is a Supreme Court ruling that indicates that it must be in the main law to be fully enforceable. Presently, many NLV holders are still renewing without meeting the 180-day requirement that was the previous requirement, okay, from the current rule. So there is some legal ambiguity here about this minimum stay that will be for sure challenged in the courts by people who stay less than 183 days and are denied to renew. And probably the Supreme Court will say they are right because the ruling of the law may not impose a limit on freedom of movement. It has to be in the main law. Okay, this is the legal thing. So as you can see, there is some ambiguity into these requirements. Now let's talk about the renewal process. A case study. Let's talk about the money. This double amount that we always mention. Financial requirements. For example, a couple, they applied with 36,000 euros, okay, but now they plan to renew and they need to show double that, So they need to show that they have 72,000 euros in 2 years, okay? The main applicant, for example, receives a pension of 15,000 euros per year, and this is annually. It means that in 2 years, this person will receive 30,000, okay? So that counts as 30,000. It is passive income. So they need to complete with 42,000 euros. How could they complete? First example, they have a property rental income that gives them 21,000 euros per year. That is 42,000 euros in 2 years. Together with the 30,000 euros is 72,000 euros enough funding. Or example 2, they have money saved in the bank of 42,000 euros. Okay, I hope this case study helps you understand the difference between having the lump sum in the bank, savings, versus having passive income, how it counts. Basically, passive income counts as double also, okay? Because usually we count it annually, but you can calculate it for 2 years. Now, documentation requirements: ongoing private medical insurance coverage or access to public healthcare system. You have to show that for the renewal. And as I said, for the first renewal, probably you won't have access to public healthcare system using the Convenio Especial, so you have to renew for one more period at least. Updated passport copies for both individuals, so the authorities will want to see how long you were out of Spain. And here a lot of people say, like, what if I go to inside Schengen? Well, in Schengen, if you cross the border and there is no border control, with 99% of the times there's no border control, you won't get a stamp, so it's not really fully enforceable. Okay, they don't know that you are in Paris unless they do a specific investigation of your credit card movements, etc., which doesn't happen unless you are like a very important individual or risky individual, right? So that's the situation within Schengen travel. And you will have to be empadronado when you renew, that's for sure. Now, you need to spend in Spain to maintain your residence and obtain long-term residence or citizenship. For the NLV renewal, now there are renewals being in Spain for less than 6 months until the May 20th, 2025. There is no such rule because the Supreme Court deleted the paragraph that required to stay 180 days in Spain. They deleted it. But now, after May 20th, a new regulation has the paragraph, they need to stay 183 days, aligning with tax residency. So now the Supreme Court should get a case questioning this, and they should delete it again. Okay, if you understand me well. But if you don't want to have any problems, you will need to stay in Spain for more than 183 days per calendar year, which will make you a tax resident. Now, if you want to pursue the long-term residence, apart from renewing the non-lucrative visa every time, you also need to plan ahead if you want to stay under a long-term residence, which is much better than a non-lucrative visa. Much better. Yes, it has work permits. You can be outside of Spain much longer time. You don't need to show as difficult or high financial requirements. It is much better. So you cannot be outside of Spain more than 10 months in 5 years if you want to obtain the long-term residence after 5 years. Sometimes, someone joining the call, sometimes you can renew for an extra renewal. It's called extraordinary renewal of a non-lucrative visa. And but this is extraordinary, and some regions, for example, don't permit it, like Galicia. Okay. Now, if you want to obtain the Spanish nationality, the time that you cannot be outside of Spain, it's if you're a holder of a temporary residence and you want to apply for Spanish nationality, you shouldn't have been more than 6 months outside of Spain per year. Now, if you are holder of a dual citizenship from Ibero-American countries or the Philippines, etc., people who can benefit from the 2-year fast track, they cannot be more than 3 months outside of Spain before applying for Spanish citizenship. And if you are holder of a long-term residence, you cannot be outside of the European Union for more than 1 year consecutively, or no more than 30 months in 5 years if you want to apply for Spanish citizenship. So be careful if you plan to stay longer in Spain for long-term or even obtaining Spanish citizenship. Authorities will look at how long you've been physically in Spain. And this is what we said before. The Supreme Court ruling saying that the ruling of the law cannot include a limitation on freedom of movement, but now the new ruling from May 20th, 2025 requires a minimum of 193 days waiting to be challenged again in court. So we're gonna move forward. Now, what if you plan to go back to work? There are several ways to go back to work under a non-lucrative visa, or let's say changing, modifying your non-lucrative residence into a work permit or a different kind of residency that permits working. The three most common ways is either to start your own business. It's called cuenta propia. You present a project, you show that it is viable, and they give you a work permit, a residence with a work permit to develop your own business. Okay? Now, it is not automatic. It's not like, oh, after 1 year of residence with a non-lucrative visa, I can get a work permit. No, 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 no. You are eligible to present a project that could potentially be accepted, and then you will get the permit. But it's not that easy. The second way is to work for a company, finding a company that wants to sponsor you. For example, I don't know, a language academy that wants to hire you as an English teacher, and they decide to sponsor you and do the paperwork for you. That's called cuenta ajena, and then you obtain a work permit. Okay, you can do it. But I'm not saying it is easy. It's possible. My wife did it, for example. She started her own business, and she's from Ohio. But I'm not saying this is easy. It depends on your specific situation, and definitely I will recommend going with legal help. And then the third one is, now it is possible to transition to the digital nomad visa or teleworkers visa, which proves the gray area of working remotely under the non-lucrative visa, because to transition to the digital nomad visa, you need to prove that you have been working at least the last 3 months remotely for a non-Spanish company. Supposedly, you shouldn't be doing that under a non-lucrative visa, but there are successful cases of people transitioning from non-lucrative visa to digital nomad visa. Okay, so these are three pathways. Now, let's talk about citizenship. Normally, citizenship by residence in Spain, you need to be living legally in Spain for at least 10 years. This is the general rule. You see the map there. All the countries that are gray there need to stay in Spain for 10 years in order to be able to apply for Spanish citizenship. But if you are a holder of an Ibero-American passport or other countries with cultural ties with Spain, like Philippines, Andorra, Portugal, Brazil, you can benefit from the 2-year fast track and apply for the Spanish citizenship after only 2 years residing legally in Spain. And the non-lucrative visa, of course, counts towards that residency period. Now, a lot of people have dual citizenship, especially Americans, for example, with Mexican passport, or Mexican parents, or Puerto Rican parents. Well, you could simply obtain that nationality, and if it's by blood, by origin, technically, it's enough. But if you're American, for example, and you don't have any ties to Puerto Rico, and you decide to move to Puerto Rico and live there 1 year, they will give you a citizenship certificate, but it will say by residence. You became Puerto Rican by residence, not by origin. That doesn't count for the 2 years fast track. You need to be by origin. And again, what Spainguru can do for you, regardless if you choose to pursue the non-lucrative visa with legal help or by yourself, I'm sure you can find on Spainguru a lot of interesting resources that can help you, at least for information. I have more than 1,500 blog posts, 700 from them dedicated to the non-lucrative visa with focus on Americans and UK nationals. And you will find services that you for sure need to use, even if you apply for this type of visa by yourself. And if you decide to go with professionals, which I highly recommend, and I will show you now some polls that I run asking people about this, they will help you. They will help you to take care of the timing of the application, okay? Because it is not impossible that you do it yourself. In fact, 50% of the people do it by themselves, most of them successfully, but you have to be organized. You have to be you have to be very careful on what you do first and what you do after. Anyways, you go to Spainguru.es, you will find tons of content. You will find all my recommended partners that I have been recommending for years: immigration experts, tax advisors, health insurances, medical certificates, sworn translators, apostle services, private ones, bank accounts, money transfer services, property rentals, mortgages, even, and so much more. More than 100 services that you can find on Spainguru, all personally vetted by me, all with great, great, great reviews. So, because of course, it's all about the reputation. I wouldn't recommend any service that has had bad reviews or anything like that. All of them are vetted by me, so you're in good hands. Now, this is a bonus slide. I asked people, did you do it yourself or you went with legal help? 50% of 80 votes, so 40 people said I went with help, and 50 did it themselves. And then I asked the people who went with legal help, are you happy? Around 80% of people said it was money well invested to go with legal help. And if there was something I didn't mention in this webinar, or something that you want to dig deeper into, maybe I can point you in the right direction or give you my opinion. Of course, this is no legal advice, but I will give you the resources so you can find the answer to your question. You can always send me an email to hello@spainguru.es. And someone was asking, how do I join the community? There you go, facebook.com/groups/Spanish NLV. Okay, just go to Spainguru.es. You will find all the links to the groups there. And you can also join my YouTube channel with around 800 videos, 50% of them about the Spanish non-lucrative visa. And you can join my newsletter that I send every single Monday at 10:15 a.m. CET with the top 10 discussions on my groups and also investigation blog posts, most watched videos of the week, etc., etc. And as I said, the content of this webinar is for information purposes only and it's not legal advice. The requirements listed here are not official. Check your specific consulate requirements or BLS offices if applicable. And now we're gonna go to the Q&A session. First of all, as I said, if you could help me and leave a review on Trustpilot, because Google recently decided to delete my 77 5-star reviews that I've been working hard to obtain. And yeah, I feel like crying. Sorry for that. But if you can just leave me a review, if you think the information that I shared today is helpful, it would be so nice of you. And that's the only thing I ask from you. And of course, I'll be praying for you to obtain the non-lucrative visa. Now, let's go to the questions. Normally, the software that I normally use, this is not the normal software that I use, so I'm completely unfamiliar with Google Meet, and I didn't know what to do. But it occurred to me to share this link so that we could have this webinar today. But I don't know about the Q&A session, but how to structure it. If you could just ask the questions in the chat or something, I will start reading from the beginning. Yes, I think I'm recording it. I'm not 100% sure, but I did set a software to record this, and hopefully it is working. What about diabetes? I answered that during the webinar, but yeah, about health insurance and getting diabetes and with as a pre-existing condition, it is a heavy one. I heard of denials. Okay, the best you can do is to reach out to health insurance brokers or exclusive agents, tell them about your case, and ask them how they can help you and what is the likelihood of being accepted with having diabetes. There are ways. Okay, on Spainguru.es, I recommend an exclusive agent that will grant you that can get you a compliant non-lucrative visa health insurance policy that will give you excellent advice, because he's also an immigration lawyer with years of experience with the non-lucrative visa, Carlos Blanco. Now, the next question, does proof of receipt of pension need to be notarized? I don't know the answer to that question. This is probably USA. I don't know the answer exactly. You need to check the consulate's requirements, official requirements, or join the group. Here's the group, Facebook, and ask. Always mention the specific consulate where you're applying from. Ask for people who have applied there and what they did, and ask them if they were successful or denied. Will embassies accept a single apostille for a group of documents? No. The apostille is individual for each document. Eileen, very informative, Bruno. Thank you so much, Eileen, for joining today, and everyone else. Adnan, hi, are you doing great work? I appreciate how to prove for NLV my mother is dependent on me, which documents to provide. Well, you need to prove that she's financially dependent, maybe tax returns, where you declare that your mother depends on you. Normally, for example, in Spain, if you have a dependent that depends on you, it is in your tax returns that you have children, you have ascendants that are dependent on you. Okay. You also have to prove that your mom maybe is part of the same family unit. So, as I have enough funds to transfer in her account and apply for separate NLB, she's above 70 years, or keep her as a dependent. You can bring as a dependent. Okay, the best, maybe. The thing is, if she applies alone, if you send her money, be careful because the bank statements need to be seasoned. So the money has to be in the bank for a certain amount of time, and that depends on the consulate. 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. So be careful with that. Okay. I don't know, maybe get some legal advice and ask about your specific situation. What is the best route? Children who are under 18 years of age and studying need to provide school documents. And what documents to provide? I'm not an expert into this because really it changes by consulate so much. I wish I could tell you. Okay, I wish I could tell you, but it's just reading the requirements of each consulate. Regarding spouse, she's housewife. Which document provided? I don't know the answer, specific the answer to that. A businessman, doing business exporter, but from last year I stopped working. I recommend you to go with legal expertise with that. Malcolm, it's all good. Thank you, Malcolm. Carmen, excellent. Thank you. Lynn, how do we join the group to ask questions? Yes, it's there on the page, on the screen. Representation. Thank you, Alberto. Please leave me a review. How do we access the recording of the webinar? I hope I'm recording. I will send it to your emails. Malcolm, Bruno, are there agencies that handle the whole process for you at a fixed fee? If so, you could name one or two of the best. Just go on Spainguru.es. The first button on the top left of the menu is consultations, and there you have 3 recommended partners for the non-lucrative visa processes. They can also recommend you tax advisors. They will get you health insurance, etc., etc. They will handle the whole process for you, and their experience in all these consulates in the UK and the US and everywhere in the world. If I arrive in Spain around the end of a Q3 or the start of Q4, that is less than 183 days already for the fiscal year, well, that means I'm gonna be a tax resident and get taxed for the passive income by after end. So if you are less than 183 days of a certain calendar year, physically in Spain, you are not a tax resident in Spain. So if you arrive after July 3rd, you are not tax resident in Spain that year, provided that you weren't any single day before in Spain physically present during that same year. So everything will happen in the following year. So if you're trying to avoid CGT, for example, try to do the sale during the year where you're not a tax resident in Spain. Carmen, do you know someone that gives this same kind of information for someone applying in Brazil? Applying in Brazil? What do you mean? Like, okay, this is focused in US and UK because I talk a lot about the specific requirements of those consulates, but 99% of the information that I shared applies for any consulate, and it's general about the non-lucrative visa. Trustpilot, there's a link where you can leave the reviews if you want to help me. Adewole for Larin, thank you for joining. Hi, thank you. It is lovely. Can we please have detailed information on the digital nomad visa? Well, this webinar is about non-lucrative visa, so you have tons of information on Spainguru.es about digital nomad visa. I have so many videos on YouTube, and I also have a dedicated Facebook group with 13,000 members about the digital nomad visa. But I can tell you that you need to be working remotely for non-Spanish companies. Maximum, I think, is 20% of your income can come from a Spanish customer. You have to have been working for at least 3 months before applying. You need to be making, I think, at least 2,650 euros per month during those last 3 months, and then there's other requirements. Now, after 5 years, Janet, thank you for joining. After 5 years of NLV, if you've been out of Spain for more than 10 months, can you renew an NLV again if not eligible for residency? So after 5 years, as I said, you can renew at most one more time. It's called extraordinary times. It's the third renovation. Now the ruling says you have to be at 183 days minimum per year in order to renew the NLV. For the third time, it is extraordinary. In Galicia, for example, they don't let you do it. Some regions, they don't let you do it. In most regions, they let you renew the NLV for a third time. You, of course, have to comply with the same renewal requirements, okay? So you will be able to renew the NLV. But if you have been outside of Spain more than 10 months per year in the last 5 years, you won't be able to get the long-term residence. Okay, so it's two different things: renewing the NLV and obtaining the long-term residence. And the third thing is the extraordinary renewal NLV. Those three things is the thing that you need to understand very well how they overlap, depending on what you want to do. Neil, great presentation. Thank you very much, Neil. Please leave me a review out there. Help me out. Alberto, thank you. Does the marriage certificate has to be issued within 6 months? I think the marriage certificate has a validity of 6 months, usually, unless stated otherwise. The marriage certificate, it depends where you were married. You were married in the US, you will get a US marriage certificate. You were married in Congo, the marriage certificate from Congo. So I don't know what it is written there. But usually the consulates, if it's not stated differently, give a validity of 6 months, usually. But check the requirements. There is no legal advice. B, does the fiscal year for tax residency work the same way as the legal residency requirements for citizenship, or not necessarily? For example, if I arrive in August and stay more than 183 days until the next year's August, does that count as one full year of legal residency for citizenship? Or do I need to have 2 full calendar years? So the citizenship, the legal residency requirement for the citizenship starts to apply from the starting date of your residency card, okay? And when you're going to apply, so if you arrive on July 1st, 2025, and you are Ibero-American passport holder, you will be able to apply on July 2nd, 2027, let's say, after 2 years of legal residency in Spain, as long as those 2 years you were legal resident in Spain, or after 10 years of legal residency starting on July 1st. Okay, this is my understanding. Before applying for Spanish citizenship, normally any lawyer will ask you to obtain from the police station a certificate of residency. The police station will issue a paper saying this person has been in Spain for 750 days, 753 days, starting on this date, etc. So if you want to make sure when you're starting your official residency, it should normally coincide with the start of your initial TA card. So it is different than tax residency. It's a bit different. Bart, thanks Bruno. We'll do a Transpire review. Thank you so much, Bart. You're awesome. And stay in touch, of course. I'm always reachable by email or Facebook, commenting, etc. Alejandra, could you go back to the topic of proof of residency when applying for NLV? I'm hearing getting an Airbnb is the usual route, but is this required? Can your overall net worth be considered with you getting a landing pad rental? You're officially move. So this depends on the consulate. Some consulates just require that you say the province where you're gonna move. You just fill up and say like, I'm planning to move to Seville province or to Valencia province. Yeah. Some other consulates, they say, I want a rental contract. Yes, or a property deed. So depending on the consulate, when this is the case, when they're so strict, it's evolving. It's not that I don't want to answer you, but it's evolving all the time. Some people get accepted with Airbnb, but some people say like, oh, I got Airbnb for 1 month, I got denied, or they ask me for more. Oh, maybe you have to get an Airbnb for 3 months. Sometimes it's 6 months. Okay. Sometimes you can use other platforms. You can use, for example, Spotahome. Spotahome is a mid-term rental. It's rental for months. You can also book online, and actually you have discount on Spainguru, 20% in the tenant fee, and you could use it as well. Okay. So yeah, what I recommend you is joining the community. If you're not gonna go with legal help, joining the community Facebook group there, and ask the community, mention your specific consulate, read all the documents, read all the previous posts about your consulate regarding the accommodation, and also go to spainguru.es/Spanish non-lucrative visa and go to the specific consulate page, because I list all the content, all the first-hand experiences of people who applied in those consulates telling their story. And you can read those just to be informed about your specific consulate. B. Can I transition from LLB to autonomous visa to a cuenta propia or self-employed visa if I suddenly want to start a business in Spain? As I said, yes, after 1 year of non-lucrative visa, you have the possibility, it is not automatic, the possibility to submit an application for a cuenta propia modification, provided that you have a business that is approved by the authorities. They will give you a work visa. If I'm married to an EU citizen from France but want Spanish citizenship, is it still 10 years? EU citizen from France but want Spanish citizenship. I don't see the relation here. Yeah? I mean, if you married a Spaniard and you live for 1 year in Spain, you can apply for Spanish citizenship because you are married to a Spaniard. If you're married to a French guy or lady in Spain, then you have residence tied to the residency of the EU passport holder as a family member of the EU member. And that's it. You're a legal resident, and now you start counting for whatever legal resident period that the passport that you hold has. Hope it makes sense, the answer I gave you. What if I don't want one child who above 18 years add in my file? I don't understand the question very well. I think, Adnan, you need legal help there because you have a specific situation there. Definitely. I wish I could help you. I don't understand the question exactly. But yeah, you can bring children of over 18 years old if they're financially dependent on you, and you can prove they're part of the same family unit, so they didn't marry, for example. Now, Lynn, if your children is 18 and wants to study in Spain after renewal, do they need a student visa? I understand that if you renew and they're as dependent of your non-lucrative visa, your children can study in Spain. I understand. But this is not legal advice. What if you don't want one child who above 18 years? Again, this question I don't understand it fully. Neil, if I contact my local consulate, will they pass on their exact requirements as you mentioned? They seem to vary from consulate to consulate. Yeah, they will vary. It's crazy how they vary. I told you. In Edinburgh, for example, you could be working and get your non-lucrative visa. Of course, special work. They say the nature of the work has to be specific. Blah blah. It's an oil rig in the Northern Sea, but it's the only consulate that officially says you can work and still get your non-lucrative visa, right? So yeah, just to give an example how different they can be. And some consulates, they are very easy, they're very chill, um, in terms of proving accommodation once you arrive to Spain or when you plan to move in Spain, as we said. Yeah. Others are very, very strict. Carmen, regarding the acro, the certificate must be subject access request, the free one, or the police certificate, the paid one. Good question. I don't know. First time I've seen this question. I didn't know there were two kinds. Maybe you can ask that in the community. Piolina, in my situation, my wife is Indonesia and I'm an American citizen. She does not live with me in the US. Can I apply for me and her in the USA while she is in Indonesia? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry for that. Again, a question for the community or a lawyer. Will passive income from outside Spain earned before becoming a legal tax resident after 183 days be taxed once I become a tax resident, or only the income earned after becoming a tax resident? You become tax resident for the specific year starting on January 1st. So if you become a tax resident sometime in the middle of the year, it goes retroactively for the full year, let's say. So all the income from January 1st that year will have to be filed and you will pay taxes on it, right? So I see that there are no more questions. Here's the link for if you want to leave a review. If you think this information is useful, I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry that my software didn't work. I will really strongly consider really leaving the software that I've been using because it was causing me problems. I hope the recording will be fine, and I will share it with you on your email, especially for the people who couldn't attend or who are in very different time zones and they have to wake up at 4 in the morning, they can't attend. But I really appreciate that you made it. I really appreciate that you went through the blocks on the road like this, because really the non-lucrative visa, I think this is the spirit of the non-lucrative visa. You will find small rock, small stones, smaller pebbles, bigger rocks, but you have to jump them or go around them. And and a little bit living in Spain can, the bureaucracy can be a little bit like that. The rest is not like that, but the bureaucracy is like that. We don't like it. We're not in Spain because of the bureaucracy. Oh, everyone knows it. But once you understand how to overcome it, and you stay calm, and you move forward, you can fulfill your dream, really, like do what you want. Okay, so this has been a little test for you, to see how hard you are. And I'm sure that if you be able to join here today and overcome the difficulties, you will be able to overcome also whatever happens to you in the future. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'll be crossing my fingers for you, hoping that you apply and you obtain your visa and make this dream come true. I will see you around. Send me an email, join the Facebook group, join the YouTube channel, watch the videos if you want, and join the newsletter. Everything is free. Everything is free. You can opt out from everything I told you anytime. And if you need, you can use any of those services. But of course, it's up to you. Thank you so much for joining, and see you around. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you, Piolina. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, B. Jagger. Thank you, Malcolm, Carmen, Diane, JC. Thank you.